That the FBI has discovered new, potentially incriminating emails and that they are actively investigating this issue. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Martha McCallum. Welcome to a special edition of America's Election Headquarters as we cover this breaking story this evening. The Clinton campaign pushing back. Campaign Chairman John Podesta did a conference call today with reporters. Here's some of that.
By providing selective information, he's allowed partisans to distort and exaggerate in order to inflict maximum political damage. And no one can separate what is true from what is not, because Comey has not been forthcoming with the facts.
He's clearly not happy. We've got Team Fox coverage on this. Jennifer Griffin with the Clinton campaign in Miami. But first, let's go to Chief Political Correspondent Carl Cameron, who is at the Trump campaign event in Phoenix this evening. Carl.
Hi, Martha. Welcome to Phoenix. Huge crowd, and they're still flowing in here. Mr. Trump has wrapped up an event earlier today in Golden, Colorado, where he seized immediately and again on the renewed investigation of the email server, and it's really just a mess for Hillary Clinton, and that's great news for Donald Trump and his supporters. The GOP is really more optimistic now than perhaps any time in the entire campaign. Here's a little sampling of Trump's criticism from Golden, Colorado.
The FBI is reopening their investigation into the criminal and illegal conduct of Hillary Clinton. Hillary has nobody to blame but herself for her mounting legal troubles. Her criminal action was willful, deliberate, intentional, and purposeful. There's 33,000 emails missing. We haven't seen it yet. However, I think some of these 33,000 were captured yesterday.
For the lines outside, they don't have to worry. The event was supposed to start now. Mr. Trump's running a little bit late, so the long lines outside, they'll get a chance to get in here. This has really buoyed the Trump campaign for obvious reasons. And even though the polls were already tightening, they're now beginning to look at states that weren't really on their target list. Trump's going back to Michigan, we hear, coming next week, which was a state that, for all intents and purposes, they had written off not that long ago. He's used Detroit and the inner city as sort of a backdrop for his argument that he can help African Americans and minorities far more than Democratic policies and Hillary Clinton can. But now, those states that looked like they might have been out of reach may well be within his grasp. 10 days to go, Martha. All
right. Well, they're revving up the crowd in Phoenix as they wait for Mr. Trump. We'll take you back there live in a few moments. But to the Democratic side now, Vice President Joe Biden in Nevada campaigning for Hillary Clinton as the polls show a tight race in the battleground state between she and Donald Trump. Jennifer Griffin is live in Miami, Florida, where Clinton is holding a rally in the next hour. Jennifer, busy day in the Clinton campaign.
Very busy. And Martha, I think DNC interim chair Donna Brazile put it best when she said that Democrats feel like they've been hit by an 18-wheeler Mack truck in the wake of Comey's remarks. Now, when Hillary Clinton took the stage not long ago here in Florida, the crowd booed when she mentioned FBI Director James Comey.
It's pretty strange to put something like that out with such little information right before an election. In fact, it's not just strange, it's unprecedented, and it is deeply troubling because voters deserve to get full and complete facts.
Campaign officials say there is no indication this new investigation is about Hillary Clinton. The emails in question, they say, were not sent to or from Secretary Clinton. During a conference call with reporters, Clinton's campaign chairman demanded answers from Comey.
Director Comey was the one who wrote a letter that was light on facts, heavy on innuendo, knowing full well what Republicans in Congress would do with it. It's now up to him who owes the public answers to the questions that are now on the table.
Huma Abedin was not traveling with Hillary Clinton on her campaign plane today, but aides say the campaign stands behind her. There were no indications that she planned to step down from the campaign. I think it's important to point out, Martha, that nearly 17 million Americans have already cast their ballots. So Hillary Clinton is still hitting the campaign trail. She'll be in Miami, Florida for a concert, a Get Out the Vote concert with J-Lo not long from now. And then she will be campaigning in Miami in the all-important state of Florida tomorrow. Back to you.
What a story. Jennifer, thank you very much. So the Democrats are not the only ones who are questioning Director Comey's judgment here. Republican Senator from Texas, John Cornyn, tweeted this, quote, "Why is the FBI doing this just 11 days before an election?" Although I guess you could read in a number of meanings to what John Cornyn said there. Meanwhile, John Weaver, who is an aide to Ohio's Republican Governor John Kasich, said this: Director Comey should give a more complete explanation. Is this reviewing newly found emails? Is this reopening? Too much at stake, says Weaver, who worked on John Kasich's campaign. So here to talk about this, Dan Henninger, deputy editorial page editor for the Wall Street Journal. Where to begin here, Dan? What an explosive story this is, although I guess at this point we still don't know how explosive.
Yeah, I guess what we have to call is an October surprise without anyone actually knowing what the surprise is. And so we're left with nothing but the politics, raw politics. And I have to tell you, Martha, I'm a little bit surprised at the Clinton campaign's reaction to all this. This has clearly thrown them on the defensive, and they kind of feel they've been on the offense running against Donald Trump. They feel they've been taking leads in some of these battleground states. Suddenly, they're making FBI Director Jim Comey the center of this. And I don't understand why they've decided to elevate this issue the way they have. You know they're going to be on all those Sunday morning talk shows attacking Jim Comey and attacking this issue. But this is about the email server, which is the most vulnerable thing Hillary Clinton has had to deal with. I mean, going back to March of 2015, when the news came out, she gave that terrible press conference. At that point, her approval rating was about 52%. It went down almost 10 points and has stayed there ever since. And now the Clinton campaign is the one that's decided to make this issue at the center of the conversation we're having right now, rather than just saying, let the FBI director kind of deal with this and go forward, because it's not going to come out before the end of the election.
Does Comey have to say something further? And do you think he will?
I don't think he will. I mean, look, for them to say that Director Comey should explain to the American people what he is talking about basically reduces the FBI to WikiLeaks. Clearly, this is about emails between Huma Abedin and Anthony Weiner, and I do not think that the FBI should be in a position where they're simply dumping raw material out there before they have taken a close look at it.
You know, when you look back at the WikiLeaks exposure, what it revealed in many ways was that what the Clinton campaign was trying to project on the outside, that they weren't worried about these issues, was a whole nother story underneath. They were panicked about this email server, saying we need to clean this up. Why didn't she handle this sooner? They were angry at her that she let this issue hang out there. So now you have this new wrinkle from Jim Comey. And the optics of it are that they are exasperated, that they are panicked. That's what we're seeing so far. What are they going to do on Monday?
Well, I think they should be panicked. Look, whether this came out, Director Comey told Congress that his investigation into Hillary's email server was completed. Not only was it completed, but they gave Cheryl Mills and Heather Samuelson, her lawyers, immunity and agreed to destroy their laptops. It
was incredible.
Extraordinary.
And no grand jury.
No grand jury.
Hillary Clinton was interviewed at the very last minute for a very short time, and then he came out. I mean, he's taken a lot of professional heat for the way he handled this. We should establish that as a baseline.
This should have gone to a grand jury. Now Jim Comey's trying to deal with this mess. But I think that you have gotten to the point here where the Clinton campaign has to believe that Director Comey would not have done this unless his agents, his investigative team, had come in and put something on his desk and said, sir, this is very serious. We're going to have to deal with this. And Comey has recognized it as such. But at this point, I don't think he can just walk out in public and dump it into the election. He's got to go through a process. Comey has been playing by his own book here since July. And I think it's probably time, if I were advising him, to impanel a grand jury and let the chips fall where they may eventually.
I would imagine that is what he will do. He's been under a tremendous amount of heat within the agency. There's been a lot of people in the agency who were very unhappy with the way this was handled. They believe that the evidence that came forth in the initial investigation did point in the direction of an indictment. And now he has an opportunity, based on this information that was put on his desk, to right his own ship and his own reputation. How much of that do you think is what we're watching here?
I think not just his reputation, but the reputation of the FBI itself, which has taken a big hit. This is an American institution. Most people trust it. And I think there was dissent inside the FBI over what he did. If Congress holds hearings, like Jason Chaffetz calls FBI agents in front of him under oath, they're going to have to testify honestly about what was going on inside that investigation. I think there's an effort here to try to repair the reputation of the FBI, taking this information that is relevant to the original investigation and dealing with it in the appropriate way.
And you've got to believe that this information that was put on his desk was something he could not walk away from, that he felt he had to speak out about. And if he had held it till after the election and then it came out, the criticism would have been, how could you possibly not have made people aware that you had this beforehand? Politically, though, Dan, before I let you go, what's the impact? I mean, people who are going to vote for Hillary Clinton are going to vote for her anyway, right?
I'm not so sure. I mean, her support, even among some Democrats, the ones who supported Bernie Sanders, is weak. Let me mention one thing that we haven't talked about. The Doug Band memo earlier this week about Bill Clinton, Inc. At the time, that was tremendously damaging, and that is why a lot of left-wing Democrats, progressives, do not like the Clintons. So her support has been weak, and this is not going to help at all in states like Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Missouri, Nevada, where some of these Republican senators are in tight races with their opponents. I think this has finally created the Clinton undertow that everyone thought was happening to Donald Trump and a lot of the down-ballot tickets. This is completely suppressive of Hillary Clinton's campaign right now. The Democrats have to be very unhappy.
Suppressive is exactly the right word. I mean, it could force people to just say, forget it. Yeah. I'm out. I'm not going to vote. But we will see. 10 days to go. Thank you very much, Dan. Always good to see you. So Fox News alert now from Reno, Nevada, where Vice President Joe Biden is campaigning for Hillary Clinton at a high school, trying to help her widen her lead over Donald Trump in that battleground state. And we'll keep a close eye on that. We'll let you know if he says anything that we will come back and dip into or turn around for you. In the meantime, the emails in question were on a device that belonged to none other than Anthony Weiner, who has put himself back in this story. You can't make this up. The twists and turns here. He is the disgraced former New York congressman, separated now from his wife, Huma Abedin, longtime Clinton closest aide. Clinton is calling for the FBI to disclose the facts. Say, what is it? What have you got? Let's see what you've got. All of this coming as Wikileaks continues to release damaging documents on the campaign and, as Dan just pointed out, on the foundation as well. So it's coming at her from many sides. Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry, live in Washington with the latest on this. Good evening to you, Ed.
Good to see you, Martha. An FBI source confirmed to Fox today that top Justice Department officials tried to stop Director James Comey from informing Congress about this new phase to the investigation, informing Congress that he was reigniting the probe of Hillary Clinton. Justice officials were warning Comey it might violate two department policies, commenting on an ongoing probe and also taking action, of course, that could influence this election. The FBI source said that while Comey reports to the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, he took her at her word when she said repeatedly in recent months that she would be independent and let the facts go where they may. A senior law enforcement official added that Comey felt compelled to act here because the FBI found over 10,000 of top Clinton aide Huma Abedin's emails, as you noted, from a laptop she has shared with her estranged husband, Anthony Weiner. The LA Times is reporting the new Abedin emails were not to and from Clinton, and top Democrats in Congress are jumping on that today to write to Comey and Lynch, demanding that there be a more complete accounting of all of this, that they release more information. But the senior law enforcement official we spoke to said the FBI is looking at evidence that ties all of this back to their original probe of Clinton's server. And Republicans note that after all the heat that you were just talking about that Comey took after not pressing charges against Clinton, he's not going to go forward without having something solid. Watch.
So now we're in a situation where, having taken this on and having found new evidence and having been criticized for a number of aspects of how this has been handled, I think he's done the responsible thing of saying, we have new evidence. I assume that there's some significance to it, because if it were just a few random emails, you wouldn't do this under these circumstances. But I think this is probably more substantial, and that is why he has put it out now.
So the Clinton camp is dealing with this renewed crisis, if you will, since it's already kind of happened before, but also dealing with more WikiLeaks, as you mentioned. Round 22 of John Podesta's email out today, including one message that went from liberal activist Neera Tanden to Podesta that basically said that Neera Tanden was questioning the judgment of both Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton on various political matters. So we've seen this time and time again in some of these WikiLeaks dumps, where some of their own advisors are questioning the candidate's judgment. Martha?
Very true. Ed, thank you.
Good to see you.
So all eyes are on Phoenix, Arizona right now. Donald Trump about to step into the room there at a rally. They are getting the crowd ready, getting everybody in there and seated. Donald Trump earlier today went pretty hard after Hillary Clinton and this email issue at a rally just a few hours ago. So will he keep it up when he takes the stage in a few minutes? We will bring you there live. But Hillary Clinton is not the only one under fire about the email probe. Critics taking aim at her confidant, Huma Abedin, who is conspicuously off the trail today, not with Hillary Clinton, and FBI Director James Comey also getting a ton of attention, of course, in all of this. A look at the fallout when we come back. FBI Director James Comey taking a lot of heat from both sides of the aisle for announcing that the Bureau will take another look at the Clinton email investigation that blockbuster news broke on Friday afternoon. So former Justice Department spokesman Matthew Miller says this, quote, was this information Congress needed to know urgently? Of course not, he says, although we're not sure how he knows that. Tom Fitton, the president of Judicial Watch, says that potentially it's as bad as Comey as it is for Hillary. So what does he mean by that? Let's bring in Bill Gavin, former assistant director of the FBI in New York and former chief executive for the FBI in New York, Miami, and Denver. He knows his stuff. Bill, good to see you this afternoon. Thanks for being here tonight.
My pleasure, Martha.
What do you make of all this?
It's disarming, to say the least, to hear the Justice Department come out and say that maybe Comey should never have said anything. Director Comey is caught on on the horns of dilemma here. If he didn't come forward and say something and it has such a dramatic effect in the future, he'd have been criticized for that. And, of course, he's being criticized for doing it at this particular point in time. So he's really caught in those horns of dilemma. It's a difficult position for him to be in.
So what does he do next?
I think probably some more information needs to come out. What he did by that letter, Martha, I believe, is he just exposed the tip of the iceberg, a structure of which he already knows the breadth and the depth of as a hazard in this election process. And so he's going to have to do something with that, maybe come out with some additional information. I think we all have to remember that when he appeared in July, there's been 3.5 months since that appearance. Bureau hasn't exactly been sitting on their hands waiting for something else to happen. I think that this investigation has been going on. True, some new information has come to light with the exposition of the documents from Huma's computer.
Right.
I can only see disaster for Huma in the future with the way the Clinton machine operates with the denial and deception. I can see the power behind the throne, Huma Abedin becoming the sacrificial lamb in this whole escapade.
Could be. What do you make of the discussion that it was not about emails that were to or from Hillary Clinton? Does that necessarily exonerate her? I guess it depends what's in them and how that information would have gotten on that laptop if it didn't come from her office.
Well, I don't know. That's a difficult thing to answer, and perhaps that's not totally true. What I look at is that maybe some conversation between Huma and Hillary occurred where they discussed the real problem that they had at hand and were, if you can believe this, candid with Hillary. If they were candid with some information about what the problem really was, then I think there's some problem for all of them.
Donald Trump had this to say about Huma Abedin earlier today in Golden, Colorado. Let's play that.
Uma's been a problem. I wonder if Uma's going to stay there. And I hope they haven't given Uma immunity, because it seemed that everybody that walked down the sidewalk got immunity. I hope they haven't given Uma immunity, because she knows the real story.
Bill, your thoughts?
Well, I think that probably he's right. I hope there hasn't been any immunity granted on a large scale that would prohibit doing something with the information that has been brought forward in the past 24, 36 hours, because that would be tragic for the whole country, for us as a citizenry of the United States.
Well, what do you think? I'm just curious what you think the best thing for Jim Comey to do right now. We just talked about the possibility of impaneling a grand jury right away and putting this information in their hands. Is that the way he should go?
Well, I think the bottom line is I think we have to understand that the investigation goes where it goes. He cannot impanel a grand jury. He can only recommend that his investigation goes to the Justice Department and that they impanel the grand jury and present the material to the grand jury. He doesn't have the ability to impanel a grand jury.
Right, obviously. So he can recommend that they impanel a grand jury. You know, the crazy thing is that when you look back at this and the relationship with Loretta Lynch and her meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac, which forced her to have to move herself off the case and put the decision about whether or not to move forward and indict in the hands of Jim Comey. So now he's getting all this criticism for going around her, I guess, to some extent, and forwarding this memo to to members of Congress and cutting out the Justice Department. He's in trouble with them now. What do you think about that?
Sure he is, and I think we have to remember that what he said before Congress and what he said in both public and the private audiences is that prior to that conversation or the press conference he had in July, he never contacted the Justice Department. He told Loretta Lynch he was going to have that news conference, and when she asked him, "What are you going to talk about?" he said, "You'll have to tune in to find out what I talk about." It's a little bit difficult to understand all the dynamics here, but I'm sure that it's something extremely serious, or he wouldn't have come out with this letter to the congressional committees. And we all have to, I guess, take a step back and see what's going to happen from this point on.
I mean, he has to do his independent investigation and present that evidence to the Department of Justice and see where it goes from there, would be what most people would expect. Bill Gavin, thank you very much. Good to see you, sir.
Thanks, Martha. My pleasure. Thank you so much.
So we are awaiting the start of Donald Trump's next campaign event. It is fast and furious on the campaign trail. He is in Phoenix, Arizona, the Republican nominee preparing to hold his second rally of the day. There's Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who is confronting some issues of his own these days in Arizona. We'll take you there live when that gets underway. And could Hillary Clinton's grip on some key electoral votes slip in the wake of the FBI's announcement? Larry Sabato looks into the crystal ball, coming up next. A lot going on the campaign trail today. With just about a week and a half to go now, Donald Trump is about to speak in Phoenix, Arizona. Got a bit of spring in his step, given the news that dropped on Friday afternoon, wondering whether or not it can put some life back into some of those places where he is hoping to do better than Hillary Clinton when Election Day rolls around. We just saw Sheriff Joe Arpaio on the stage there as the people wave their signs and get ready for Donald Trump. So we'll keep an eye on that. We'll take you there live when that gets underway. In the meantime, Congress is responding to the bombshell from the FBI that they are investigating newly uncovered emails related to a laptop that was used by Huma Abedin and Anthony Weiner, whom she was married to at the time, all part of the Clinton probe. Democrats now furious that the man they praised when they thought she was exonerated is now back on it. Republicans looking to see if the indictment that they had expected may be back on the table. Kristen Fisher joins us live now from Washington. Kristen.
Well, Martha, Democrats on Capitol Hill are lashing out at FBI Director James Comey. Just this afternoon, members of both the Congressional Black Caucus and the Hispanic Caucus held conference calls demanding that he release more information about these emails and that he do it very soon. They argue he owes the public the full story, or else he should never have opened the door this close to Election Day.
Director Comey showed extremely poor judgment in deciding to issue the letter he did yesterday. He is irresponsible if he doesn't provide further explanation about why exactly he's looking at these emails.
Now, in a rare display of bipartisan agreement, congressional Republicans are also calling on Comey to release more information, but for a different reason. Congressman Bob Goodlatte says the FBI's decision, quote, reinforces what the House Judiciary Committee has been saying for months. The more we learn about Secretary Clinton's use of a private email server, the clearer it becomes that she and her associates committed wrongdoing and jeopardized national security. Now, Republicans are also hoping that this will help them retain control of both the House and Senate. Vulnerable Republicans like Congressman Darrell Issa are making the case that this is exactly why the GOP must stay in charge of Congress, to keep a check on a possible Clinton presidency. Quote, this decision shows exactly why we need strong watchdogs in Congress to ensure thorough oversight of the executive branch. So after months of trying to defend all the controversies around Donald Trump, these down-ballot Republicans are now turning the tables on their Democratic opponents and questioning their loyalty to Clinton. Martha?
Kristen, thank you very much. Kristen Fisher in D.C. tonight. And as you know, there is early voting underway in a number of closely contested battleground states. Both Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton may have something to like in some of these numbers. Clinton campaign's been touting the turnout in Florida and Nevada from women and Hispanics. They feel like that's a good sign for them in both of those states. Trump's forces see it another way. They say they are seeing very encouraging signs in Iowa and in Ohio. They've also said that they see a lot of registration among Republicans in Florida as well. 37 states allow some form of in-person or email or mail, I should say, voting ballots. As much as 40% of the electorate could vote before November 8th. These numbers climb every time we have this process. Latest figures from the U.S. Elections Project and the Associated Press show nearly 20 million people have already voted as of Friday. So before all this happened, a lot of votes were already baked in the cake. It includes about 11 million mail-in ballots that were returned and 8.7 in-person early voters who have taken advantage of that option. So how does all of that weigh in with the news that we saw on Friday? We will see. In the meantime, in light of those numbers, is there still room for a dramatic shift in the electoral landscape at this point? The latest projection from Larry Sabato's crystal ball shows Hillary Clinton sitting pretty at 352 electoral votes. But that was, of course, before all of this happened. And the newly discovered emails sort of reared their head on Friday, and with relation to the private server issue that she's dealt with. Here to talk about it, Larry Sabato, director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. Larry, good to see you. Thanks for being here this evening. So 352 electoral votes for Hillary Clinton on your roadmap as it sits right now. Is there an impact from what happened on Friday, do you think?
Well, my guess is there is, but people are going to have to be patient if they actually want data rather than just opinions. We're going to have to wait till midweek because it takes a while to do good, valid surveying over more than a couple of nights. You want to see what has really happened and also whether the polls take a dip and then recover, which, by the way, has been the pattern for both Trump and Clinton through this long campaign. There have been a lot of charges, a lot of events that have discouraged supporters or party identifiers for a while, and then they return to the fold. So we have to wait. Now, if I were to guess, I would say it's bound to have some impact. I think it's more limited than some have speculated about, a point or two. Now, that could affect Florida, could affect North Carolina, could affect Arizona, could affect Iowa, could affect Ohio, because those states are very, very close. And that's what I'm waiting for. The national numbers aren't that interesting to us anymore. It's the battleground states where this election is going to be won or lost.
What about the fact that close to 20 million people have already voted, Larry?
Well, you know, I understand why people vote early. I've done it myself. You know, you look at their calendar, maybe you're someplace else on election day. But here's the price when you do it. 20 million people didn't have the information that occurred Friday, and whatever else is going to happen in the next 10 days. And Martha, I'm sure you've been around campaigns enough to know there are going to be other bombshells dropped on both of the candidates. Campaigns save things for the end. So when you vote early, you don't know about any of that stuff. It's like writing a review of a play after Act 2 in intermission. Okay? I mean, you don't get the full play.
I know.
Yeah, you don't get the full play.
Yeah, you don't. I talked to somebody who just had voted overseas who said, I already voted though, so what do I do if I want to change my mind based on all of this? And you make a great point about just that. So when you look across the states right now, Larry, obviously this has been, it really is not a tight race in the electoral vote the way that you have it right now. What do you think is the impact of this? And do you believe, as you just said, more will come out? I mean, if it's sort of in a holding pattern, this investigation, I would think people who were with Hillary Clinton are going to say, oh, it's just more garbage that's being thrown at her. It's not going to affect them, but it might affect some of those people. What do you think roughly in terms of undecided? Somewhere in the 6-7% range at this point?
That's probably generous. It's a lot lower than the polls say. A lot of people say they're undecided when in fact they're not going to vote. Past studies have shown about half of the people at this stage of the campaign who say they're undecided never vote at all. The other half usually break in about the same proportions as the country as a whole. Now, maybe that will change on account of this. Maybe the remaining undecideds will be more tilted toward Trump. We simply don't know. That's why we need more information. But a lot of this, as you say, is baked in the cake. This is such a partisan era. The Clinton people are committed. The Trump people are committed. After that Access Hollywood videotape, a lot of people said, oh, well, that'll melt Trump's support away. It had virtually no impact on his level of support.
Yeah. I guess when there's this much getting slung around on a daily basis, you just hope that you're the person who gets the mud slung at you, in the right cycle, and that a couple days beforehand you can keep your head down and hope that nothing pops up again, because it's just coming so fast and furious. Put the honest and trustworthy number up, guys, so we can show this Fox poll before we let Larry go. Is honest and trustworthy. These are so bad. 30% say, yeah, Hillary Clinton's honest and trustworthy. 34% say Donald Trump is honest and trustworthy. Have you ever seen anything like this, Larry?
No, it's never been this low. The favorability ratings have never been this low for both candidates. It's a shame. I mean, I don't like to see this because it increases cynicism about politics. And believe it or not, we have a good system. It's not as great as it could be, but it's a good system, and we ought to appreciate it a little bit more than we do. These candidates obviously have special problems, and we don't see that every 4 years. And I don't think we'll see it in 2020.
I think everybody hopes you're right about that. It's a good system. It's probably there are a lot that are worse, I guess we can say at this point. But sometimes it looks a lot like what we see in other countries at the moment. So, Larry, thanks for making us feel good about how things are going to go in the future. Good to see you.
We're trying, Martha. We're trying. Thank you.
Good to see you. Have a good weekend.
Same to you.
Thank you. So as we've been telling you, Donald Trump is working through the weekend, as is Hillary Clinton. He's about to take the stage in Phoenix as they get the crowd warmed up there. We're going to take you there live when that gets underway. Plus this contentious election cycle, leaving a mark in more ways than one. We were just talking about this, right? Everybody says, it's awful all around. I can't take it anymore. So what's the impact on the workplace? A new report says that there is quite an impact, in fact, at work when we come back. Out there these days, right? You can feel it at home, you can feel it at work, you can feel it out there when you walk around the street. It's not just among the candidates, it is among everybody, it seems. A new Wall Street Journal poll shows that this election is causing a lot of strain and a lot of anxiety among everybody in the workplace, it seems. These numbers doubling since May, when we were finishing up the presidential primaries. About the same, say 70%, 44% say so in October. As we head into the home stretch. So let's talk about it with Mickey Cargile, president of Cargile Investment Management, who has looked into this. Mickey, welcome. Good to have you with us today. What did you find out about this?
As we look at this, it's no wonder that it's trickled into the workforce. It's even in our households. It's been such a long and grinding process that it just affects everyone's, not only their attention, but their attitude toward things. When I looked at the employers overall, only 1/3 of employers have a policy that regulates the discussion of politics in the office. And I'm actually surprised it's that high. You would think that's one thing that you really wouldn't have to have a policy about because it is so destructive in the workplace.
So what do you recommend when it comes up in the workplace, or, should people try to avoid discussion of it, or is that not healthy? Should people try to sort of let off a little steam and get it out there, or is that a little dangerous in this environment?
Well, I think it's always healthy to exchange ideas with others, but you can't let it become personal to where it affects your relationship with your other workers. Workers don't have to get along, they don't have to like each other, but they can't affect the profitability of their boss. And it's the manager's job to lead. 90% of a manager's job is managing the interpersonal relationships in the office. So, the leaders need to step up and lead, but I think the employees also need to take a step back, take a breath. A week from this Tuesday, let's count the votes and see where we stand.
Yeah. Have you seen this before to this extent? Because it does feel like this time it's very different. People have always argued politics, but it seemed like you could do it and walk away unscathed and still be friends. It feels different this time.
The parties have been very effective at polarizing the voters, and that's in their benefit because that helps them raise more money to have that us against them, we're right, you're wrong, and just eliminate the exchange of ideas. And that's why we have the election, is because we don't appoint our leaders, we elect them. And so, as we move forward, I think this is going to be something that's an educational process for everyone involved, that we need to change the way that we vet the leaders that come up. Who would really want to be president?
Well, that's part of the problem. Most people would never want to. I've talked to 4-star generals and said to them, why doesn't somebody like you run for president? And they say, forget it. I have no interest in going through this process. That's something we really need to think about. But when you have two candidates who are in the 30s in terms of their rating on honest and trustworthy, I wonder if you're going to see a backlash next time around. Will we pick people who are boring and uninteresting and smart? I think a lot of people hope so.
Well, you're very optimistic. I hope you're right. I don't expect that's the case. I think we'll continue to swing this way. Gridlock and polarization is working for the parties. And until you have a strong third party that steps up and starts taking votes away from them, I don't think you're going to have that exchange of ideas.
I think we may see
this
that.
is the way we do it, and I think it's okay going forward.
A lot of ground shifting under the ideologies in both of these parties, and we may see what you talk about. We might see something emerging in terms of a third party. It's been tried before, but maybe the disgust over this whole thing might lead in that direction to some extent. Mr. Cargile, good to see you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Martha.
So as we've been saying, Donald Trump is going to take the stage, we understand, any moment now in Phoenix, running a little bit late. He was pretty much on time at the earlier event today, and Clinton's been running on time pretty much as well. They've got quite a bit to get out in front of everybody, given the news that broke on Friday, the bombshell in the Clinton email investigation. So we'll take you to Phoenix Live when that happens, and also both candidates cutting votes in Iowa. Trump has been saying all along that he's got the edge in Iowa, but Iowa has not gone Republican in the last couple of cycles. So will it this time? And has the email situation changed that to any effect in that state? We'll be right back with more on America's Election Headquarters. Hillary Clinton's campaign playing defense today as the FBI announced that they are looking into newly discovered emails. The headache that she thought was over has come back to haunt her. The news comes as Clinton tries to break ahead of Donald Trump in the battleground state of Iowa. Polls there have showed a very tight race in that state. So how are the voters there digesting this latest email bombshell? Peter Ducey, live in Des Moines, Iowa. Lovely city. Good to see you there, Peter. How you doing?
It is lovely. It's good to be here, Martha. And we spent some time a little ways away from here this afternoon at a very busy Trump campaign office. We also followed some Trump campaign canvassers around. And one of the volunteers told me that every house he knocks on the door, when somebody answers, he says they want to talk about the emails. And that is even though the higher-ups in the state for the Trump campaign say they're not reworking their pitch to voters to include any more about the FBI investigation.
Trump did not need this, but we're very grateful that it did come to surface because the American people deserve to know that there is a presidential candidate out there who is under investigation. That should never be the case, and that's actually very sad that we have a candidate in the race for the White House, the best position in the whole entire country, and she's under investigation. That should never be the case. But Mr. Trump, we're winning in Iowa. He will win Iowa. He will become the next president.
Voters here in Iowa are all very knowledgeable about politics, even months after they hosted the first in the nation caucuses. So everybody that we've spoken to since landing here yesterday knows all about the server investigation. And we noticed that the new development made Trump supporters and Gary Johnson supporters really dig in their heels. Now they're seemingly more excited to back their candidates just to try and stop Clinton.
Hillary's emails definitely reinforces my disdain of her. We've always knew something was up with it, and we just stuck with our gut instinct, and now it's coming out again.
I think she's guilty all along, and about time they, do something about it. I mean, I'm a Trump supporter, so I hope they do something about it.
And when we dropped by a Hillary Clinton event here in Des Moines yesterday,